Welcome to another video. I'm excited to have you back. This time we're going to talk about how to connect with people effortlessly. And this is a topic close to my heart because I see sometimes people who have a hard time connecting with other people. And actually it's something that's not as difficult as it may seem like, even if you've been struggling with it in your life. So there's hope for you, and we're going to dive into it with the different ways of looking at this. And no, this is not another video where you have to memorize or learn lots of different things, then trying to keep them in mind while you're talking to someone, because in my view that is not actually how connection naturally works. And if you're trying to fake connection, that is going to be very difficult. So let's get started. So the very first question that you can ask yourself is, well, where have you experienced effortless connection with people? Where have you been? What have you been doing? What has happened, right? And what was on your mind when you connected with people? And when you have an experience of being connected with someone, usually there's nothing on your mind. You're not thinking of trying to imitate the person. You're not thinking of what to say next, so do you sound smart. You're not thinking of trying to pace something. Those are all terms used in NLP, especially leading and pacing and matching and mirroring. If you're in NLP, this is all the stuff that you learn. But that's just adding things to your mind. And what that does, and that's why I don't share here tips or tricks about this, what that does is it basically takes you out of the conversation, into your head, trying to control stuff and trying to make things happen. And you miss that we are built for connection. Let me repeat that. You are built for connection. That's right, because we have evolved naturally as humans over thousands and thousands of years in a group. That's why we are the predominant species on this planet. So for us to become the predominant species on this planet, we had to naturally connect with people and function in a society as a whole. And if you don't see that, if you miss that actually you're built for it. All your ancestors were good at connecting with people at some level, at least to the degree that they could procreate and that they could raise a child, then it looks like something that's out there and somehow needs to be learned and somehow needs to be put inside of you so you can connect with people. And actually what I'm trying to say is that no, this is very natural. Connection is something that we humans are made for. That's the very first point. You are made for connection. You're made for it. You've been built for it. Your brain is wired for it. All of that. And that changes the entire game from thinking that there's something broken with you, or that you need to fix something, or that you need the 10 steps to have the connection that you're looking for. Actually, suddenly it's no, you're made for it and it's natural for a human being. Okay, very first point. So when you look at where does connection actually come from? Like you thought about different situations where you felt connected either with a person or with yourself or nature or anything like that. Well, as said, usually you're just in the moment. You're just in the moment. Now, if you look at a conversation or just at your life, at a moment of connection, you feel really connected, and then you feel a bit less connected, and then you feel more connected, and then you feel a bit less connected. And that's very natural. It's a natural function of how we operate, that we feel more connected and less connected. During conversation with the same person, we go in and out of connection, without having to do anything. Without even thinking about connection, we naturally just fluctuate. Which is another important point. If that's the case, if it's the case that it naturally fluctuates, then it shows that it is inherent. It is within us to feel connected or to feel less connected. So connection, as we look at it, connection on a factual level, on how the universe is structured, we are all connected. Right? We're all connected. Where do I start? Where do you start? When you look at very, very fundamental level. But the experience of connection, that's something that fluctuates. It goes in and out. But it is not something that needs to be worked for and earned. It is something that just naturally comes. So the second point I want to make is that if you know that, then there's nothing to be freaked out about if you don't feel connected with someone. Because it's just a natural occurrence of a conversation. And if you don't know that, if you think, oh my God, no, I don't feel connected, now I need to do something, and again, what happens? You go into your head, you're trying to manage the situation and all of that, and it's not really helping, it's usually just making it worse, right? So just noticing that, oh, I don't feel as connected anymore, changes the game versus, oh my God, I'm not connected now, oh help me, I need to, and oh what's the next thing to say, and all that. As you're going through that, you feel less and less and less connected, and probably awkwardness and anxieties rising more inside of you. So remember that if you don't feel connected, that's just a natural fluctuation, and when you feel less connected, before you know it, you're back into connection with someone. Now, when you look at a deep connection between two human beings, usually they're both in a clear-headed space. They have nothing on their mind, they're talking and they're going deep. So if I were to show you two people who were deeply connected, they would have nothing on their mind. If I were to show you people who don't feel connected, they had lots on their mind. They have lots on their mind. So the primary factor is what's going on in there, right? So that's the next point. So how can we facilitate? How can we facilitate connection? And I don't mean as much as trying to do something and all of that. I'm much more thinking about along the lines of what is a natural, fertile ground for connection to just kind of spring up. And the way I see it, the number one thing that helps connection to just naturally come is listening. And I don't mean active listening where it's just another technique of like, I'm hearing you and I'm reflecting back to you and all of that. If that naturally comes, cool, that's fine. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how you as a person listen. Where listening doesn't become a doing, it's actually something that just happens. Just think about the conversation that you had where you felt really engaged. You didn't think, oh, I have to listen very carefully. It just happened. You were so engaged with it, you let it happen. So, how you listen has a big impact on the whole conversation. If you are in your head thinking about the next thing to say, again, you're missing the person really in front of you. You're not really connecting with the person. And what makes connection and social interactions interesting is that there are all kinds of ideas around you. There's all kinds of people with all kinds of views, with all kinds of ways of living life around you. And so listening can open your eyes to new ways of seeing life. So listen. Listen, listen, listen. Second, check in where you're at. If you're all in your head, it's much harder to connect. And especially if you're up in your head and then trying to facilitate connection by doing tips and tricks and doing the 10 steps that are going to give you connection, right? And when you know and you trust that, oh, I'm up in my head, and just that noticing actually is enough for something to shift, because you notice like when you notice something, and by noticing I don't mean like getting sucked into it and like, oh no, and I'm not connected now, this is all going to go wrong and all that. That's not noticing. Noticing is just that, oh right, I'm not feeling connected right now. Just the noticing changes the game. It changes how you interact with the person and yourself. So checking in with yourself and where you're at is really important. Because when the other person, let's say, is in their head, And you notice, oh, they're a bit in their head. But you don't make a big deal out of it. You just continue with the conversation. Before you know it, most likely the person is going to drop out of their head again. And you're back in connection. So that's why I find it so simple. It's so simple. It's just actually seeing for yourself that you're built for connection. That connection is something that comes and goes in a conversation, and there's nothing to do about it because it is inherent within us. It's our natural ability. It changes the game when, as before, when you have the thing of like, oh, don't feel connected, you have to do all those kind of things. It actually takes you away from the person. So when you look at what actually prevents connection, it's when you're up in your head, when you have anxiety, when you feel awkward and all of those kind of things. So the number one thing that will help you with connection is seeing through your own insecurities. Because if you think that you have to manage a conversation and appear a certain way, it's going to be a lot harder for you to feel connected. So the number one thing that I have found helpful in terms of fulfilling relationships is when I myself have changed and things that used to trigger me or I used to feel uncomfortable around weren't uncomfortable anymore. Suddenly, the connection just went deeper with people. But I'll do another video around this topic, around anxiety, around awkwardness and all of that. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, you can like it, you can share it, you can do whatever you want. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.